Hello, everyone. Today we are here for the 8th Digital Roundtable session of Vardiya. We are here with Ahmet Öğüt. Thank you for accepting our invitation to online sessions and joining us. First, I would like to introduce you our speaker very briefly, if you allow me. Ahmet Öğüt, born in 1981 in Diyarbakır, Turkey, is a socio-cultural initiator, artist, and lecturer who lives and works in Berlin and Amsterdam. He is the initiator of the Silent University, which is an autonomous knowledge exchange platform by refugees, asylum seekers. So now we will listen to Ahmet Öğüt, and you can go on.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm doing the same thing. I hope you're enjoying your time in Venice. I know all the shortcuts there if you have problems. You know, often you have to walk around the islands, but I know all the shortcuts. I can tell you after this conversation. If you need any tips, any things that makes your life easier, there. But I can see that you're enjoying it. It's already easy. So I'm happy to be your guest, and I'm happy to answer your questions for the next half hour. Maybe we start with questions. It's better.
Yes.
I am assuming that it's your first time in Venice also, right?
Yeah, it's their first time. Only one of the students, she studies in Milan, so she's been to Venice, as far as I know. But I don't know about other students. Maybe you can answer us, guys, and let us know if you've been to Venice before.
Our first time in Venice. So very first time.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Can you get closer?
Hello again. It's our first time, very first time in Venice.
Good. But you have been already there some weeks already, right?
Yeah. It's their second day, so you can answer.
It's your second day?
It's our fourth day, actually.
Okay, because these groups are changing. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, let's start with your questions.
Well, we had time to examine your biography in your website, and I'm myself curious about the Farhenheit 451 project. What are the driving forces to make you do that project?
Sure, let's start with, because I want to also connect it with the context of museums and biennials. And let's start from a little bit like backstage information about that piece, because what you find on the website, there's a little description, explains the idea, and then what it means and what I share with people who find out about the project and so on. That is what happens afterwards. But there is also pre-process of that piece, which was linked to a story, to a city, Finnish city, Helsinki. And in Helsinki, there was an attempt to open a new Guggenheim. You know how the Guggenheim museum model works? This is a franchise type of museum model. They have a big brand, and they bring this brand to different cities. The first one was in Bilbao, in Spain. And they were planning to open a new one. Even there was a conversation at some point for Istanbul. Yes, it was just initial conversations, but there was big steps in Helsinki. They wanted to open a new Guggenheim, and Helsinki has already a big international museum, and it has some kind of international program as well. But it was, it was a known museum, but more locally known museum. So when Guggenheim approached, they asked for 4 million euros, as far as I remember, just to loan their brand to the city of Helsinki, not to build a museum, not to run the museum, sustain the museum, maintain the museum, but borrow their brands So they could call it Guggenheim Helsinki and make a new building or convert this existing museum into Guggenheim. And that was a lot of money to ask from a city, but that's how they work. And I think they are doing in Abu Dhabi now one as well. And there was a big conflict about it. So this international conflict has landed into a small European wealthy city, Helsinki. And when they asked that amount of money, all the art scene there, artists, curators, critics, they start doing assemblies, getting together. And they say we can ourselves initiate something using such money, not even that amount of money. And we can initiate our own public projects. So they founded something called Checkpoint Helsinki. And they applied the government, local government themselves. And they said, well, they collect signs as well that they don't want Guggenheim in Helsinki. They want to use that money, not for a brand, but for rather projects. So Checkpoint Helsinki, it was the self-organized initiative by the culture scene in the country. 500 people, assembly model, and they started their own small foundation. And that foundation, they managed to get a good amount of money from their local government. And also Helsinki Guggenheim project was first canceled and postponed because of their collective action. And they thought of inviting an artist first. So the first artist they invited, to make their own project, and that was me. So they wanted me to do a project to prove the government that they can do something better than Guggenheim. Imagine the level of responsibility. Yeah. And I proposed this idea, Farhenheit 451. Farhenheit 451 was, imagine public space in Finland is not like Istanbul or Venice. It's like sometimes there's nobody walking on the streets. It's 500,000 people, a whole population in the largest town, Helsinki. So it's not like super vivid, hectic public space. It was something to activate, not very big challenge, So I went to the fire department, and the chief of fire department agreed with the idea, although he had no idea what I was referring to, which was this famous dystopian novel and film by Truffaut that was made many, many years ago. And I was trying to explain all these firemen hardly ever speaking English in fire department, giving a lecture there, explaining why I want to do this project, which is moving from the idea and twisting it in the movie and in the novel, where fireman goes in this dystopian future and they burn the books. Read them, books are not allowed in that feature, in that story. So people cannot read books, and it's illegal and it's dangerous. So all the firemen, they're appointed to find people and arrest them and burn all the books they find. So they wanted to destroy all the cultural heritage, and this is the future they were imagining in this story. So I asked the firemen, why don't we do the opposite? Why don't we print books instead of burning them? So I just take exactly the same story and ask the fireman, and fireman goes around the town and they print books. And they didn't know how to print books, so we used one of their fire trucks. If you have seen images, and there's some also video on internet, I am assuming you have seen some things already?
Yeah,
or you can check later.
We saw the images, but I guess we missed the video.
Yeah, if you can find it, there's a filmmaker who made a short film you can watch after this. It's quite funny one. It's not the one that I keep speaking. She interviewed with the firemen, and also people. So it is more interesting and more funny. And anyway, they learn how to print books, and I asked them to, I gave them a list of books, and we secured the copyrights of those books. They were all banned for different strange reasons in different countries. For instance, Alice in Wonderland was banned in China because animals are speaking like humans. Or there was a children's book was censored in Texas because the writer's name was same name as a Marxist writer. So there are stories like that that doesn't make sense why those books were banned. It's not obvious reasons, but quite silly reasons. But they were censored, and we reprinted those books, around 14 of them, I guess. And they made many copies of them, so around 1,500 copies of books. They were going around the city, to the squares, to the university, to the library with their fire truck, with their semi-designed fireman costumes. And people would approach them, and in the fire truck they would have printing machines, glue machines, folding machines, and really make proper books, like really properly printed books in short time. Next question.
Could you compare like the several biennales you were part of, the Berlin Biennale, Istanbul, Venice? Like, what are the differences? What are the similarities? Like, what are your overall opinions on each of them?
Venice is it's like a training military service for other biennials. It's a context. Venice is one of the early biennials, but as you may see some parts of it, like how the city functions, you need to bring everything with you, even sometimes like your plugs and everything. Yes, it's not always super well organized beforehand. Like when you enter a white cube in another museum context, it's different. Certain basic things are there. Technical equipments are there. Things are there. There are technicians even. Certain things like is made and prepared to be for exhibition display, for installing exhibitions. But in Venice, it really depends who you know, who you are connected to. How do you find legal ways to get through something in the country and also produce something that is probably not allowed to do in Venice? So there is a lot of games around administration and bureaucracy in Venice. So you can't just go and focus on your project, even if you are doing something for the main show or for your pavilion. Some countries, they were strong at the time when Venice Biennial started. They were able to secure and buy pavilions in Giardini, especially. So their places are permanently there, so they can have certain things are fixed. But some countries like Turkey, renting places, and every time it's changing, then it's a bit unpredictable, more unpredictable. Now it's more stable. When I was doing Turkey, we had to invent a lot of things. Last year, when I was working with a Slovenian collective, we were very well connected, so everything was possible in Venice because they were super well connected with the right producer, right people, and we could focus on the projects that we are working on. So I'm talking about these things from an office. This is the Istanbul Culture Foundation office, and my relation, for instance, with Istanbul Biennial rather started in the office, not in the exhibition space. And I haven't hardly ever been in the office space of Venice Biennial. It's not that open that you can actually walk in and have friends there and invent things, find solution to things together. I mean, the team I worked with last year, they were local activists, studied architecture in Venice because they studied there. They know the city different than all this, art tourists coming only periodically and appearing in town. They actually knew the town and they knew alternative spaces there. They know Mestre, not only the island. I have also friends who were born in Venice, so from their perspective, things are different. So when you go for a biennial, for even the largest one, to somewhere, still you need this kind of understanding of the place. I was talking about the shortcuts. You only get there because of the locals, and the locals have the true information. Not even when you get into the office gives you much more access to the true information, but also right people in the office who really know the city and also care about the city. So Istanbul Biennial started with that kind of spirit as well. The people working in the office, they work over hours, they They work until the last minute, until the day before the opening. Always, what you see the first day you walk in, it was usually a magic. It was done in conditions because people had this kind of idea of like believing in what is happening. So, and then the biennial itself had that kind of relation with the city. That was that kind of manifestation. So for me, if I'm an artist, I could also easily focus on my own work and try to make my work as the best way possible, and don't care about administration or other struggles happening in the office or tricks or not only good things or bad things also sometimes happen, because sometimes you can have really bad people in the office space. All they want, they don't care about the art, they don't care about the public. So all the decision-making stuff, you might not be interested as an artist or as an architect, but I think these are all together. This is the production of cultural heritage, is the combination of all these efforts. You definitely need strong ideas, strong connection with public, but you also need strong ethics, institutional ethics, and so on. So Venice is rather, every country is take care of themselves situation, and it's a good profit for the city. So they don't really care if it's a strong biennial or if it's a biennial that has a statement, and there are all these like big statements. They don't really have to care about those things. They rather, the locals, it's important. It's by default. It's important by default. If you have a better biennial or less better biennial, but it shouldn't be that way. There was actually protests in Venice even in the 60s by the local workers even. And also participating artists. There was a high political moments that was really important to adjust Venice Biennial. They were selling artworks before that kind of uprising happened within the biennial or the city. They were getting percentage. It was more like an art fair before, and then that kind of adjusts the ideology a bit, but still it is rather a festival. Still, it's not rather really, and although it has the power to make a big statement. And Istanbul was always like, compared to other biennials like Guangzhou or Sydney, it had much smaller budgets, but always had a strong impact, always had statements, and that's why it was growing gradually. And this needs to be taken care of. It's not always possible. Like not every city needs a biennial. Not every, there are more than 100 biennials. I don't know how many right now, but when it started also in Istanbul, there was 10, 20, not more than that. And it was very strong impact in every city. It happened the same also in Sydney. Checking the time, still some time. In Sydney, when they founded 40 years ago, this Italian family, Australian-Italian family, they found that they wanted international culture to arrive. It's so far, they can't get people there otherwise. So biennial had this role to bring international art to that faraway land, and also bring the local art outside. But then, when we were taking part in 2014, when this dad already passed away and his two sons took over entire culture funding scene, not only art, but theater and opera and so on, they claim ownership. You cannot claim ownership over something that is belong to people. The biennials are supposed to belong to people, and they operate that way. They are not. It's different than private foundations. It can be funded by a private foundation, but its powers usually come from its strong link with the city and right to the city, and right to the city belongs to people. So therefore, this connection should not be ignored. It's not like I gave the money, I want this artist in, I want this kind of art in, and I don't want this, I want this out. It's not like that. So the idea of sponsorship, making something happen, brings another kind of surplus, and that should be respected. So in some places that's respected, in some places that has been changing, and it has to be adjusted. And the only people can do that is temporary contractors that are artists. They are in and out of these biennials, maybe one time, maybe two times. but they have to be there not only for their artwork also. And it's important everyone involved is there for that collective culture heritage production. We have one more question, but my answers are long, so one more question.
Yeah, we can have one more question, guys. We have like 7 minutes left, so if you have other questions.
Hello. Knowing that you are trained as a painter, you use a wide range of mediums. How did you start to use different mediums such as video art, drawings, sculpture, installations? How did this transition happen, and how did you choose your way of expression? Which medium, I mean?
Well, if you ask me my own favorites, if I would be selfish, I would say I still love painting. I still love drawing. That's my favorite. But not because it's my favorite, I don't prioritize it. That's what I was trying to explain in my previous answer. If I prioritize my own wishes, that is so little to do with art itself. So little to do with who I communicate the art. If I only prioritize my own wishes, which is I train as a painter, I love making painter. It's like meditation, it's solution to maybe my personal psychological problems. It's good solution, Instead of doing yoga, other Pilates, I can just keep making everyday painting and drawings, and I will be happy, certainly, in a sunny country. Definitely, I will be happy. And then I will hope maybe a friend of mine secretly takes this away and brings to a museum, and I just find it in a museum, or somehow a collector's buy it. And how lucky I am, and then it's accidentally shared with people. There's a lot of artists, they do that. It's their personal, private process. And then somehow it goes to public, even if they don't have the wish. Somehow they also get very rich, even if that wasn't their wish, because they were only focusing on their internal relation to solving their own feelings on the surface, and it's limited to that. So my relation with the medium is basically communication, right? And if I can connect it with the thing that I would love to do it, it's great. If I can connect it with other materials, other mediums, manage this communication better through other materials, it's also fine, So that shift never really happened in that way that I realized it is not only about me satisfying myself as someone who keep producing all the time, because our teachers were saying, in order to become a better painter, we had to keep making more drawings. We have to keep making more without thinking. Thinking was kind of, where was the thinking process? There was no really thinking process involved. We just had to keep, it was almost like pure labor until you develop your skills to a level that you are satisfied, or your professor satisfies, or people in small circles are satisfied. But what about people that are beyond the small circles? They don't really have the interest even in their life to go to a biennial. They come to Venice, for instance, just go to San Marco, eat some bad tiramisu and pizza and go back. They can even skip the biennial. They don't even sometimes hear about it. You can go find them yourself right now outside. So how can we connect with those people even then they don't have the interests? So it's not only about our own personal interest, it's about our collective interest, who are the active producers, culture workers, and also people who don't have active interest in cultural work. But cultural world interest needs to be developed also beyond people who studied art, or beyond people who are coming from privileged backgrounds, in order to get the world in a better place. If other people, they say we are not interested with culture, we just have to do our job and be like workers who can make some money to buy a house and a car, and we don't even have to go to exhibitions, then the way they vote for governments, the way they look at the world, the way they have an empathy with other parts of the world that things are not going so right, is very, very low levels. And it's not also their mistakes necessarily, but it's also our mistake when we cannot communicate what we do with people who don't have already interest in art. then we have to look at ourselves where we do something wrong. And that is very important. When I hear somebody who never went to exhibition and say, yeah, I go and I don't understand and I feel I'm excluded. No, it's artists' problem. It's artists or curators or other people's museum directors' problem that when they cannot communicate what they do with you. It's not like you have to go study that and then you can step into a museum or a biennial and look at something. It's not what you, it's not your disability. It's our disability, and it's part of our practice, the disability that we have in communication, what we do, because it has a great immersive power, and if you manage to transform that, that power comes out. If not, then it becomes still this little success and achievements, personal things, nothing beyond that, and actually it should be no one else's interest, it's just like personal interest.
Thank you very much for your answers. I know we came to the end, but we have a question from one of our followers on our YouTube channel.
Oh, somebody's
somebody asked a question on YouTube, so maybe our friends can direct the question if you have 5 minutes more. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So the question is based on the main exhibition in the Biennale, and it's like, how do you start a work? How do you perceive the main theme, the main concept given to you? And then how do you diverge from it? Because the question is that the many projects in the main exhibition are like far away from the concept. So how do you consider it?
You know, most of the concept of exhibitions, they are decided many months before or a year or two before the biennial or the exhibition happens. So that means it's not updated. You know, I'm more interested with what is updated, what is happening right that moment. You know, then that means a crisis might happen. And when I say crisis, it's usually negative, but something unexpected might happen. And how are you prepared for this something unexpected with your very much planned, scheduled, produced exhibition? Is there any flexibility, any space that you can actually respond what is happening right that moment in the world, in that city, in that neighborhood, in that area? And that's my interest. I stay in eyes, and when I'm giving a concept, I consider it that I am giving very important, kind of importance to that topic. If I'm invited to a site visit, I go to my site visit. Even if I had the idea already, I don't tell them. I can tell them later, doesn't matter. So I have my own approach, and I tell it when I need to share my idea. I just say it the way I see it. It's urgent and it's needed, not because it fits the exhibition concept. It doesn't fit the exhibition concept. Usually these concepts are quite like up in the air, and they are not often well grounded because they are not updated or not flexible. You know, there was times they sounded good, maybe early 2000s, maybe 90s. But right now, what is rather more important is how updated we could be within an exhibition or beyond an exhibition. So I also think of my artworks that way as well. Not like one time, 3 months, it's installed and it disappears. If an artwork disappears like that, that means it wasn't even needed to exist in the very first place. But if artworks have a life, that means it catch up with what was urgent that moment, needed, and people take it with them, and it is then remembered and it is then exhibited again. And I know that there was actually a reason to make that work happen.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers again, and thank you for the question, Ali Tıkmazoğlu, again. So we came to the end of our session. Thank you guys for listening to us, and thank you Ahmet Öğüt for joining and accepting our invitation once again. It was great having you. It's an honor for us. So have a nice week ahead of you guys.
It's my pleasure as well, guys. Enjoy your time in Venice. There are so many, like at night also you can go. I like night walk there when everything is closed and all the tourists are gone. It's great. You can find any corner, any square and turn it into your own bar. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.